speaking from Italy and precisely from the island of Sardinia. And tonight we are here for the third part devoted to oracles in ancient times and today. So it is a kind of journey throughout different kinds of oracles in the past and how they are used today, because oracles have always been here. I mean, they have always been part of the vision of human beings, and for this reason they have survived all along different ages. And so that's why the title of our topic is Oracles in Ancient Times and Today, because they have really survived all along history. Is that right, Enrico?
Yes, it is. Actually, the techniques has changed a lot during all those years. Human being practiced it. So actually, in the last episodes, I've detailed some differences between the techniques, the many, probably hundreds of techniques that a human being developed. And in ancient times, the natural oracles were more used because there were still people knowing how to practice it. The natural oracles were I can say a modern in a modern terminology, we can say they were channeling the future, channeling the answers the consultants were asking them. So in a natural technique, you would have images, internal mental images, glimpses of the future, emotional responses about what is going to happen. They could hear voices telling them what to do. And instead, with the artificial technique or prodigy, it's another name, prodigies, the people were some people organized, invented actually some kind of techniques with which you could interpret the divine will using random things like birds flying or grasping the branches of the trees, or using winds, or using some bones or stones marked with symbols to throw. Using these kinds of techniques, you could interpret the randomness of fate as divine will. So along the years, actually, less and less people were able to use channeling technique, natural techniques. So more and more along the years, the prodigies, the artificial techniques were used. And so a human being developed astrology, tarots, the runes, and I Chings, and other the other major oracles we talked about the last episode, and we will still talk about in this episode.
Yeah, Last time, that was a week ago, we actually talked about astrology and tarot cards. And tonight we are going to talk about the runes and I Ching or I Ching. No? So two different techniques that are very, very popular. In order to, as the famous singer Sting sings, in order to understand the secret geometry of fate. Sting,
wonderful.
Yes, Sting has written a very beautiful song about yes,
that was
divination.
The Shape of My Heart.
The Shape of My Heart, a very beautiful song, and that talks about divination. And so the secret geometry of fate. This is what human beings want to know about their destiny. So I think some people are watching, and we say hello. Very warm welcome for those of you who are listening and watching, and we can actually start with this new episode. And we say hello to Mariella. Hi, Mariella. Happy to see you here. You're always very, very punctual here. Yes. And all right, so we can start. Enrico is actually the expert about these two techniques we are going to talk about tonight. So tonight you are going to listen especially to him, while last time you listen especially to me because I am the expert of astrology and tarot cards. And so we hope you will enjoy. And of course you can interact by asking questions or adding your comments. We are very happy to hear you.
Actually, to conclude my, let's say, my sentence about my concept I was telling you about, luckily, during modern times, more and more people are interested in the natural techniques. From the 1800s, actually, there has been a reprise of this kind of studying, studies about transcendence connection, transcendental connection, and that started actually with trying to interpret the will and the messages of the dead with that very famous technique with the board and the stone to see the various letters in order to form phrases and to understand the will of the dead. But now, actually, after this era of mysteries of the 1800s, of come si chiamava la
tecnica? Yes, I understand what you mean.
I missed the word. However, now people are reprising to connect with spirit guides and or to our intuitive abilities.
That was called séance. Yes. Yeah, to talk with the dead, with the the board and the letters.
In French language?
Yeah, it was from a French word, yes.
Okay, so luckily there were more and more people trying to use the intuition we all have deep beneath ourselves to try to understand the will. But now let's go and see the old traditional techniques. So So we're going to speak about the runes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, so very, very interesting to know something more about this kind of divination, technique of divination.
Yeah.
So where does it come from?
Yeah,
What's the origin of this technique?
Yeah, many people think that runes are made by the Celts, but actually runes are the sacred alphabet only used by Nordic people. So Nordic people are totally different tribe, totally different people in respect to the Celts, which who were living in France, Switzerland, in the central part of Europe, the Celts. Instead, the Nordic people were living in Iceland, Ireland, England, Germany, and all the Scandinavian peninsula. So actually Celts were happened to disappear because of the wars, a bit from the Romans and a bit from the Nordic people who were trying to expand inside Europe. So Celts and Nordic people are totally different. They had a totally different kind of legends, totally different system of divinities and of mythology.
Yes.
And the name of the gods were different, the archetypes were different, and so runes are absolutely Nordic in origins. The classic Latin historians Tacito wrote about them in 98 AD, Avanti Cristo. BC. Italian. No, sometimes I get confused with Italian.
To switch from one language into the other one.
So BC, 98 BC, and he wrote about Nordic German people, in this case, launching a bunch of stones with some symbols marked, engraved on them. And by reading the casual position of these runes, of these stones marked with runes, they could tell the future. They could forecast what will happen and divine will. Actually, this was also an alphabet, so they were speaking using these letters, but actually they never used these letters for writing. The only times they wrote with this alphabet was only for sacred purposes, which was divination or engraving the stones of the stelae of the graveyards, for example. Very, very important chief leaders of the tribes had marvelous engraved stones with names and details and their life and their mythology, their beautiful decorations.
So with this you mean that this alphabet was not used for daily purposes, but only sacred.
Only sacred purposes. And also altar, of course. Stone altars were marked with these letters, and also some objects, very interesting, some objects were engraved, like swords, amulets,
yes.
or objects of personal uses were engraved with some runes. In this case, it was because they wanted to convey the energy of that archetype inside the object.
Interesting.
So swords were very often named with a name, and the name was an acronym of the gods that the person wanted the energy inside the objects too. So you could read, if you can find an object or a sword, an helmet with some runes, usually they used from 1 to 3 runes. You could just read it like here there are engraved the powers, the spiritual powers of the god 1, 2, and 3, or you can read the name of the sword using the same letters. So this is a small history, very concise history. Actually, archaeologists had some difficulties in finding the origins of the runes, because the area was very broad, and they haven't found any, in decades, any proofs that one culture developed that alphabet, or the other. They didn't know. But actually now we have proof that this alphabet came from Latinization of the sacred alphabet of the Tuscanian people, so ancient people, so the Etruscan, yeah. So it's of Italian origin, and the Etruscan had many contacts with the Celts and the Germans, because the Germans came down, invaded Rome, so Germans came in contact with Etruscans, and so with this contact the alphabet was
developed. It was developed. And I read here that runes means secret. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's something murmured, let's say spoken in a very soft voice. Because usually they use this technique to repeat mantra formulas, magic formulas, or engrave, consecrate objects, or doing things like this. So it was uttered. It was always uttered.
Yes.
Never spoken really out loud. It was a secret, and this knowledge was only used by the priests or of these villages.
Yes, very interesting.
Actually, afterwards, with the expansion of the Roman Empire, and then the sacred medieval, the sacred Roman Empire, these alphabets changed a bit their alphabets. It depends on the region where the area where that has been colonized afterwards. So actually, the origins of this oracle is the original alphabet is called Futhark, which is called ancient German alphabet because Tacito wrote about it in the first time on a book which was called De Germania. So it was a book describing the Germany,
German tribes,
the German tribes,
traditions.
So it is called German, this ancient alphabet, which is called Futhark by the first 8 letters of the runes. But actually, we saw it is of Italian origins. And afterwards, English people developed a slightly different alphabet. The Icelandic people developed their small version of the Futhark, and also other tribes in Scandinavia they had different alphabets, all coming from the original Futhark, which is the oldest one.
Very interesting.
These are the archetypes. As you can see, they were engraved in small stones or small wooden pieces. You could also use wooden pieces. Every letter has a name, a phonic pronunciation, a god associated with it, a translation, because each one of the runes have assigned a translation, a meaning in itself. Even if it's only a letter, it means something. It's, let's say, like an hieroglyph. So every glyph has also has an image inside and a full concept, which is translated in a very difficult way. If you have to explain it, you cannot translate it easily, because it is more like a concept than a word. And also, very peculiar, they also have numbers assigned to it. And so, to see some of the archetypes, here we are. We have 3 examples. The first one, on your left, Turisats, actually come from the god Thor. And very interestingly, for the English-speaking countries, Thursday is coming from the god Thor.
Yes.
So, as you can see, the culture, the English culture, inherited the Nordic tribe, the Nordic people tradition. It is completely different from the Celtic and from the Latin tribe. So Turisats, assigned to the god Thor, which was a giant, a very tall giant. He was very strong masculine warrior, Everybody knows about Thor, especially nowadays, because Marvel made 2 or 3 films about him with his very big hammer, which functioned like a boomerang. So with a magic formula, he could be thrown and come back again. And he was also able to send lightning to their enemies. But actually, even if he was very strong, he in reality was a very good god, a very good giant, because he was in help with. He always wanted to help people. So to build giant megaliths. I don't know if you and Rebecca are watching, but the legend says that Thor was always fond of helping human people by building giant megaliths, rock altars, and things like this. And so this rune was came to be associated with protection concept. Turisats actually means the thorn, and again you can really see the closeness of these two cultures. Turisats means thorn. If some of the Italian people which are following us now doesn't know how what thorn means, thorn means spina. Spina. So thorns were used, o anche rovi, cespugli di rovo. Thorns were used to mark the limitation between the village and the wilderness, and so to protect their animals, like sheep. If you have some sheep, you would make a circle of bushes, wild bushes with thorns, in order to protect them. So with it comes a very important concept of protection, defense, and also Thor was in defense of humans. He many times descended into battle to help humans. Berkana is their fertility goddess. It came associated with the goddess Berkta, which is a goddess of prosperous, for fertility, for prosperity and fertility. And she came to accudire, to help to child, to take care of children. As you can see from the picture, she would give her breasts in order for them to grow up. So she's associated with growth, and especially spiritual growth. Algid is very famous, the most important protection room, because it is associated with the Valkyries. No, I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Valkyries, maybe. The Valkyries were fighting girls, but also protective spirits. So it is associated with protection, spiritual protection. You can see them riding
yes, on a reindeer.
Reindeers, i cervi. Sì, cervi o renne. Reindeers sono renne. Let's see if we have
any questions or comments.
Hi, you and Rebecca.
Oh, hi. Here
hi,
you are.
Amy. Also your daughter.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, Amy. Welcome. Nice to see you here.
And Mariella, of course, if you want to read the runes, you have to know the meaning of each of them. They are 24 in total, divided into groups of 8. And of course, you have to read them. And of course, I have everything in my mind.
Yeah.
So the method, you just draw, pescare in Italiano. I'm using very difficult English words today, so I'm translating some of these terminologies to the Italian followers. You will just draw some runes. Pescare alcune delle rune, alcune dei sassolini, and throw them casually on a scheme, on a geometrical pattern which is on the table. And you would interpret their meanings by understanding which runes fell in which pattern, in which area of the scheme, geometrical scheme.
So now I have a question, Enrico.
Yes, of course.
So is it like in the tarot cards, in the tarot readings, that it is important if in the tarot reading it's important to see if the card is upright or upside down? Is it the same with the runes?
Of course, it is the same with the runes. It is very important to see the position of the rune, not only on the skin, but also if it's upward or downward facing. So to understand if the value, the meaning of that rune is to be understood in a positive or in a negative way. And the original way of reading them is like throwing them casually. But actually nowadays you have a different method. You could actually use the same scheme patterns used in the tarot cards.
Oh, I see.
Which is called spread. In italiano disposizione di carte. Spread. A spread of cards. Every card, every position of the card has its meaning. So in this case you have to draw, pescare. You have to draw one rune
at the time,
and positioning it on the exact
pattern.
Yes,
yeah. So this is a more modern way of
it's
reading.
not the original,
one.
The original Nordic one.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting.
And now we come to the I Ching or I Ching, if you prefer to read it the English way. I don't know the exact Chinese pronunciation. I believe it will be I King, but it's Chinese, so I'm not even try to pronounce it the right way. I Ching is derived from the Taoist culture. Taoist culture is the one associated with this very famous symbol you are seeing now at the upmost part of the screen. That is the symbol of the Tao, but not anybody really knows that the complete symbol is this one, surrounded by an octagon. Many people knows about the yin and yang Tao or Dao symbol, but almost nobody knows about the hexagon, the octagon around. Which I will explain to you in a few moments.
Yes.
Here we have the history. History of Taoism is very ancient. It comes from Fuxi or Fuxi, which is a very legendary person. He was the first philosopher and mystic person. I don't know if it's really a person. It is more described like more like a legend, a spirit.
Legendary
figure. A legendary figure able to fly and to do many things.
So just like what we see sometimes in
superhero,
films, in films, especially in films about China and martial techniques.
He was a spiritual philosopher and superhero, and also he was let's say a doctor, a sage. He knew about medicine very well, and he developed the system of the 8 hexagrams. And so Taoism is based on these 8 hexagrams. Afterwards, the King Wen in the 1152 BC started to interpret, to invent a mechanism, an oracular mechanism, from which, with the combination of one of the 8 hexagon, one with the other, you could create non è un esagono, is a linea. You could create a combination of lines which would be interpreted as an oracle. Afterwards, his son, the Duke of Chu, continued the development of this technique, writing an interpretation for each of the 64 hexagrams. And then Confucius, the very famous Confucius, in 551 BC, commented the book, adding spiritual values and philosophical reasonings about them.
So I see here that it's a very, very old method.
Of course.
Very old, starting almost 3000 BC.
Probably it started already in 3000 BC like an oracle method, but in 3000 BC actually Taoism culture started. So if you want to trace the origins of I Ching, which is a method based on the 8 hexagrams, you will need the 8 trigrams. The 8 trigrams were developed in 2900 BC. So that is the origins, but The origins of the I Ching technique in itself started in the 1152.
Anyway, BC, so very old. It's very interesting.
Using the coins.
Yeah.
But probably in 3000 BC they already used the other bamboo sticks methods.
I see. It's interesting that in the Western world, then it was thanks to Carl Jung. It was thanks to him that I Ching actually became known. And he was, as you all know, he was a psychiatrist, and he studied psychology, but also he was very much into the study of other cultures, Oriental cultures, Asian cultures, and of the esoteric. He was very much into astrology, for example. He used astrology with his patients, and he was the one who really got interested in the I Ching. And actually it's a very complex method, and the book that was written probably later on, I don't know exactly, Confucius.
It started to be written with the King Wen in
then went on
1152 BC, and went on being added. So starting from that date, you already had a small book, which was edited continuously along. Was edited firstly by his son, the Duke of Chu, and then Confucius made the last editing, and because he was the most important philosopher in China, after his editing, the development of the book stopped. And they just kept that book as an instrument of knowledge and wisdom.
It must have been really, really hard to translate from Chinese.
It still is.
Into a Western language, such a book, So
they made actually.
It was an amazing achievement.
Actually, nowadays you can find at least 10 different translations of the I Ching because of very, very difficult academic disputes about the translation and the meaning and the original meaning, and preserving the original meaning and translating in a more Western based vision, and so you have a lot of variation. I am using the first translation, which is made in the 1800s, and it was prefaced by Carl Gustav Jung.
Yes. He really did a very important job, Jung, in order to spread some of the Oriental culture. He was very much into the Indian culture as well, and actually was appointed like professor, something like that, in India, and he said that the Chinese people had a kind of science, that it was a sort of science or vision, that was really within the I Ching as well, And of course, he underlines that the principles of this science are very different from the principles on which things are based, science is based in our culture, So there's really a big difference between our vision, our culture, and that of the Chinese or other parts of Asia, of course.
And of course, because the principle was about synchronicity in ancient times. Also, Westerners, ancient cultures were based on the synchronicity, but we just lost it in the West. Meanwhile, in the East, it remained.
Yes.
That is the principle of all sacred science of the world.
It's interesting to see that Jung uses the word science, because actually when you read the I Ching, you see that there is a very practical basis, and so they can be really used for practical things in life. There's not that magical mood of our divination arts and techniques.
That's because in China, which is a very big empire, China was divided into many states, and there was a period in which all these states were making wars one to the other. So, and that is the period when wisdom of Taoism developed. So every king would, let's say, fight with the other kings to have the best counselor in their courts. And these counselors were sage Taoism assets, spiritual people. And so because all this wisdom was used by the counselors to give advices to the king on how to manage the kingdoms,
the kingdom,
the states. That is why this book is filled with practical things, because you really needed to understand what to do. And so all the wisdom came out inside the I Ching in a kind of interpretation about practical things, about how to manage situation of states, the public.
And actually, I think Asian people, from what I know, and we've been traveling in Asia for a while, and I see they still are very, very pragmatic people. Any questions? What are those? I don't know. The kind of pictures, I think. What are those runes called? Maybe
I don't know what Kolbren means. But actually, what they are runes. Runes are
probably the pictures, because you had these pictures, these sets of cards.
Pictures were cards made with drawings. I don't know the deck. I don't know the name of the deck and the name of the author of that deck, but actually it's I don't use it. I only used runes. I only use the graphics of that deck in order to make people see the culture and the picture of the gods of the runes associated with the runes.
Yes.
And Mariella, Taoism and I Ching are dated in the same period. Do I right understand? No, not exactly. Taoism Well, it's a difficult question.
Difficult question.
As I told you, I Ching is based on Taoism. The origins of Taoism can be found in 2900 BC. But the I Ching book, which is a book, the I Ching is a collection of philosophical, spiritual, symbolical meanings written in a book. The I Ching book is dated to 551 BC, with the last editing of that book by Confucius. This is the last part of the I Ching. The oracle technique without the book could be traced with the bamboo sticks technique, which is different from the one I will explain to you. Can be dated with the same date of Taoism, in 2900 BC, with the origins of Taoism by Fuxi. Also, Taoism developed in a very confused manner, because every state had different ascetic clans. Every clan had their philosophy, and so there was a period in which all these different philosophies were had different visions, and they were contrasting one with the other, until Lao Tzu came out, which is the spiritual master of Confucius. So dates are about 600 BC. He developed a system in which all the Chinese different philosophies, schools, could be put together. So Taoism is actually a puzzle of different philosophies put together by Lao Tzu. So Taoism nowadays is one single big thing, but it didn't appear to be so in the ancient times. So the technique, I only have 3 minutes. Very difficult. Here you have the cosmogony. You need the cosmogony to understand the technique. So from the emptiness of the universe, Wu Qi, came the Tai Chi, the energy of the double, which are yin and yang. Yin and yang are mixing together with different mixing percentages, let's say. So if you mix, let's say 30% yin, 70% yang, you have a kind of energy of quality, which is different with 40% yin and 60% yang. Okay? And you have 8 different combinations of the yin with the yang, which are the 8 trigrams you can see in the octagon around the Tao logo. What are those 8 trigrams? Here they are. Every line is can be or yang or yin. A full line is yang. A broken line is yin. So the first energy you see on the left, cielo, which means heavens, is 3 yang lines. Then you have 1 yin line and 2 yang. lines, which is lago, which means lake, is a different quality of energy. Then you have fire, then you have thunder, wind, water, mountain, and earth. So these are 8 different energies or quality. In Taoism, energies are understood as movements, different kind of movements the Tao is taking, meanwhile evolving from the past to the future. So you would how to draw an I Ching response. You would launch 3 coins simultaneously, and you will see if the coins will fall head or tail, testa o croce, head or tail. If you have, and you just have to see the majority of them. If 2 are yang, then the first line is yang. Okay, if 2 are yin and 1 is yang, the line is yin. If you have all 3 coins yang or yin, the line is yang or yin, but it will transform. So you will draw 6 times. Every time you launch 3 coins is to draw 1 line of the hexagram. Okay, if you throw 6 times, you will build up your 6 lines. Those 6 lines are a combination of 2 of the 8 trigrams. So you will have an hexagram. These are the 3 coins, and this is the book. This is the hexagram. On the left you have the present hexagram. On the right you have the future hexagram. The red lines are the lines which had 3 heads or 3 tails. So the line would transform itself to build the future hexagram.
So you start from the present, and then the consequence is really like a consequence from the present into the future.
I Ching is about becoming. Actually, the exact translation of I Ching is the book of changes. So everything is about becoming. I Ching is about understanding the energies of now and how the energies are
going to develop.
To develop in the future. So this is the prediction you will have. And so
well, actually it is based on a true statement. Everything changes. Everything is in movement. Yes.
I don't have time now, but however, this is an example of the commentaries you will find inside the book, which are really sometimes difficult to understand because, of course, the culture is so different from our own. But actually, you can find translations very well explained with commentaries, modern commentaries to explain you what does it mean. And this is the final hexagram. As you can see, an hexagram is one combination of 2 trigrams. And the 8 trigrams in combination, one with the other, will build up 64 hexagrams. So 64 is all the possibilities of the world to change. Like in Wu Chi means the emptiness of the universe, the original emptiness of the cosmos. 64 means all the cosmos created, because it's the maximum combination of the 8 energies, one with the other.
You probably hear in the background
our cat.
Our cat. We are not actually paying attention to her, so
yeah.
I think yeah, I think we have finished.
Yeah, we finished. We don't have any more time.
Yes,
we'll just conclude with the last oracle technique. Very funny. Woo!
Yes.
With the crystal ball.
Yes, with the crystal ball.
This picture is actually the Harry Potter professor about divination.
Well, it's also a system, you know, to look into the future and discover the secret geometry of fate. And so with this last sentence, I think we are saying goodbye. And thanks for watching. And see you in October at this point, because we are now having our new schedule is twice a month with our English program, and so we will see you in October. Of course, we will let you know when we are on air. So bye for now. Thanks for watching.
Thank
and
you.
A big hug and let's say a big hug to all of you, and Rebecca and you from England. We are always so very happy to have you here. So see you soon.
See you. Bye.
And hope you enjoyed. Bye.